Because letter carriers are out delivering the mail 6 or even 7 days a week in every neighborhood across this great country, they're often the first person on the scene when action is needed. And you put those two things together, a willingness to go above and beyond when necessary, and a frequent presence in America's neighborhoods, and you get the kind of deeds that brought us all here today to celebrate. Okay, next is our Humanitarian of the Year Award, which goes to Deborah Ochetti of Minneapolis Branch 9. And here today with Deb is Branch 9 Steward Connie Bissell. Thanks for coming, Connie. Deb, you want to come up? Along with other volunteers in her town of Burnsville, Minnesota, Deb responded to an appeal in her local newspaper to help save the life of a stranger with leukemia by volunteering to donate her bone marrow. And as it turned out, she wasn't a match. But a record of her DNA was saved in the National Be the Match registry. And 4 years later, Deb received a phone call. She was a match to someone else who needed a donation. I learned that my individual was a very sick person, she said. She quickly began the process of donating her tissue to help the anonymous stranger. Deb, who has carried mail since 1987, had to decide between two ways to donate. Traditional bone marrow donation, which is a surgical procedure, or a new procedure called peripheral blood cell stem donation, peripheral blood stem cell donation, which extracts stem cells from the blood. And those cells help form new blood that can be donated instead of the bone marrow to the recipient for the treatment. And the anonymous patient's doctors said either one would work. So Deb chose stem cell donation. She was given a series of injections of a drug that prepared her body for the stem cell extraction by producing or boosting the production of those cells inside her body and in her blood. On the day of the extraction at a St. Paul facility, a special machine drew her blood, separated and stored the stem cells, and then pumped the blood directly back into her body in like a closed loop. Sound right? Yep. I woke up that morning with so much joy and excitement in my heart, she said, just knowing that this simple act could possibly give life to another individual. Wow, what a blessing. Deb experienced a few aches and pains as side effects of the injections, but they didn't last long. The idea of giving life to someone else, in a heartbeat, I would do it again and go through that, she said. I would like to encourage others to do the same. You won't regret it. And in naming Deb the NALC's Humanitarian of the Year, the judges called her actions selfless and praised her willingness to help a stranger. She wasn't a match the first time, but she still gave a donation to a stranger, even though that wasn't her original plan, they said. So please join me in honoring Deborah Ochetti as our 2017 Humanitarian of the Year.
I would like to thank the NALC and the nominating committee for this Humanitarian of the Year award. This recognition has far exceeded my wildest dreams. I began this journey when I read an article in my local newspaper about donating bone marrow and how donors were desperately needed. I learned that blood cancer is the third largest cause of death. Unfortunately, less than 1% of registered donors are matched with a patient. Because of my faith and love of God, I was drawn to take the initial step of doing a cheek swab and becoming a registered donor in 2011. I was fortunate to be contacted late in 2015 that I was a suitable match to someone. In the simplest of terms, after some blood tests, I opted to have stem cells collected through the drawing of blood from one arm and returning it to another. It has been, and still is, an unbounding joy to realize that this simple act could save the life of another person. Even though I am listed as a donor on my driver's license after death, knowing that I had a great opportunity to be a donor while I was still alive was a blessing. I took this journey not for recognition or accolades, but out of love for others. Please consider becoming a bone marrow donor. It starts out with a cheek swab and may end up saving a life. Contact bethematch.org for more information. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,